Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's episode of Fake Accents Unite. I am joined by the ever-depressed Britisher. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
And by Rose of Dawn. Good evening.
Hi there.
Nice to see you. Have you been up to anything exciting in the past week or so?
No.
No. I'll tell you what you remind me of in this persona, Britisher, is that robot from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Wasn't it Marvin? I think it was
Marvin, the depressed robot.
The one who's voiced by Alan Rickman, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I think in the in the remake, in that sort of terrible film remake, it was Alan Rickman. Yes.
Yeah. That's the only one I'm aware of. It's the one with Martin Freeman in it.
But he's kind of got these wonderful lines, isn't he? Sort of, oh, here I am, brain the size of a planet, an IQ of 5,500, and I'm being asked to open doors.
The Marvin, the paranoid android, says Jury Rigging. Yes. Nice to see chat here as well. So that's always a pleasure when people actually turn up to the stream. Apologise. the planning on this one is somewhat minimal, seeing as I've only just got in the house.
So the usual sort of effort.
I tell you, you're just a being of pure sass this evening, sure. That's what it is. The unfortunately couldn't tempt the academic agent on to in his persona of Sly Sneak to give him a good schooling, but there we go. This week seems to have been relatively quiet in terms of sort of general news shenanigans. Although you'd know better than me, Britisher, with your the week that was. How's that doing?
Well, it's sort of rattling along. Yes. Let's see where it's got to by now. I mean, obviously, it was demonetized before I even went public with it.
Oh, of course.
Because we wouldn't want to give it too much promotion now, would we? YouTube,
No.
Thank you.
Super Chat is your friend, Britisher. The demand is there for a stream.
Yeah. So right now it's at 14,952. So 48 more, and we'll be crossing the great Rubicon that is 15,000. Yes.
Hey, congratulations. That's the regular view count now, isn't it? I remember when it was only sort of 8,000 to 10,000. So that's gone up considerably since.
Yeah, it's recently it's been hovering around somewhere 16 to 20,000 by the end of the week, if you know what I mean.
The only things that really seem to have jumped out at me this week, in terms of the news, have been stuff to do with the royals. So there was, and by royals, of course, I mean royal by marriage and not by blood. With the, what is it, Meghan? Is it her name?
Meghan Markle.
Yes, Meghan Markle.
Everyone's favourite feminist.
Declaring that she's going to raise the child via a nanny, but it will not be given any gender stereotypes growing up.
Dare I kind of throw a googly in here?
Oh, go on, devil's advocate. Go
because I believe the palace have vehemently vehemently denied this.
Oh, really?
Yes. So this is something that seems to be out there. No one doesn't quite know,
where it's coming from.
Does it come from a truthful source? But apparently this is being denied by the actual royals.
Fair enough.
And I think it would be a bit strange if they were to genuinely raise the baby as gender neutral, because my understanding of the people who do that are ones who are very ingrained in this much more progressive culture that the royal family is simply not going to have. Even if Meghan Markle wants to be as woke as possible, they have so much protocol and stuff that they're not going to tolerate a baby.
If the story is true, was the moment when they decided to inform the rest of their family, was that moment when Prince Philip was just out in his car?
I'm getting a bit of road rage, yeah. The article is a scam, says Silly Scalar. Article says she says it openly and it's coming from an anonymous source. Doesn't add up. Which,
and anonymous sources could literally just be anyone. I mean, I think this came about after, wasn't she at a hotel in New York? Like, I'm not sure whether it was like a baby shower or something along those lines. I think it was a guest who was up there, and I think what they might have meant is just not so much purposely raising the baby gender neutral, but if the baby decides whether it's a boy or a girl that it wants to play with dolls or it wants to play with army men, they won't stop him or her from doing that. Like, it could just be a roundabout thing of saying we don't really care what kind of stuff the baby is playing with, as long as it wants to play with it. And that's fair enough. If it was a case of, no, we're going to let the baby choose their gender and they can raise it.
And we'll be dreadfully disappointed.
Let it know its own pronouns.
And we'll be
It's an interesting thought, though. You know, when you sort of say whether you want to play with dolls or toy soldiers, and you're actually growing up in a family where you actually have real-sized toy soldiers following outside every day.
You can make them do whatever you want. Yeah. They're a very special breed, is like QCS and stuff like that, who do all that stuff. It's really funny, particularly because they're held in not contempt by the rest of the military, but they are laughed at because they invented their own form of drill. So they deliberately invented a very specific way of doing things, which is wrong according to every other branch of the military. So when some of them go off to to retrain, you know, from general service to, say, officership, they have to relearn all their drill again because they're so stuck in the mold of the QCS drill scenarios.
Well, as long as they don't end up turning left instead of right when the order is given, I think.
Yes, I suppose. It does look very official, even if it is wrong. Salad Fork chiming in with $5 Canadian, saying, I've been watching Trudeau implode with glee. I suspect he's going to pull a May and hold on to power tooth and claw, regardless of the cost to his party. Oh yes, this is the corruption thing, isn't it? Like,
yeah, like I've not followed too much about the exact scandal. I know it's something to do with someone. She says that she might have been like harassed or bullied within the party, and Trudeau has done his part in covering it up. But his popularity is already like about 34% or something, very low, and they've got an elections coming up in a couple of months.
I think the person wasn't the person in charge something legal. You know, I think she was part of the cabinet, but
she was the first ever native Canadian appointed like supreme judge or something like that, or whatever their equivalent is.
Because it all boils down to the fact that effectively a party which I believe is a donor to Trudeau's party, so the company that is a donor to Trudeau's party, well, they've been breaking the law a bit, one thinks, maybe, could be, possibly said, if you know what I mean. And therefore, suddenly, sort of somewhere in late night or whatever, there was an attempt to sneak something through the Canadian Parliament or whatever, or it was hidden somewhere in the small print of the budget bill, and the committee came upon it, or something like that. But I've seen sort of one or two excerpts of kind of almost embarrassed politicians sitting there, you know, kind of talking with each other, saying, "Yeah, I'm a bit perplexed. I don't quite know what to say." And these are sometimes the people of his party, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because what one was trying to push through, I believe, was, and this came from the government apparently, was that, well, you see, if corporations have been found to have broken the law-ish, kind of, possibly, you know, what they could do is, you know, once it's been pointed out to them, they could kind of fess up and pay a fine.
Yes.
It wouldn't mean that, say, any executives who knew about it and who were consciously breaking the law in an attempt to get away with it and perhaps make a few millions for the company and thus a few 100,000 in bonus for themselves, it wouldn't be that they might then have to face any legal consequences.
Shenanigans.
So, you know, if you are found shoplifting in a Canadian shop, heaven help you, we will get you.
Oh yes.
But if you kind of try and, you know, defraud 40 million or something like that, no, it will be fine. You just pay a fine and we'll come to some arrangement.
That's cool.
And one believes that goes back directly to this company being a donor, effectively.
Oh,
right.
And this is where this lady comes in, I believe, that Her legal advice was kind of sought or whatever, and of course one wanted it to be the right advice, if you know what I mean.
She wanted to, yeah. I've got an article.
I believe at some point she just went, up with this I will not put, and walked. And ever since then, kind of the various bits and pieces of the structure around Mr. Trudeau, also known as Superman to us all, of course, has begun kind of caving in on him.
So I've got an article here, which is about his response. And it says, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has denied wrongdoing. We appear to have broken the British House.
Yes, you just sparked something there, because I saw a wonderful piece, some piece of film somebody had put together of Prime Minister's question time in the Canadian Parliament, where the opposition leader was asking him, did you do this? Have you said this? Can you answer this? And every time Trudeau got up and said that this government is about creating jobs.
Yeah, and do you know what? You've preempted me here, right? So Justin Trudeau has denied wrongdoing after he tried to shield one of the country's biggest firms from a corruption trial, and said any lobbying by him or his inner circle for the engineering giant SNC-Lavalin was done to protect jobs.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
In an explosive testimony, ex-Justice Minister Jody Wilson-Raybould said she faced sustained pressure to abandon prosecution of the Quebec-based firm. And obviously the opposition are calling on him to resign. So now people are demanding a public inquiry. Speaking to reporters on Thursday morning, Mr. Trudeau said he disagreed with the former Justice Minister's characterization of events. It's so political speak, isn't it?
Well, it was wonderful, as I say, seeing that moment where the other one was kind of slowly, methodically nailing him to the wall. And he was just basically giving kind of political blurb, if you know what I mean. It wasn't, he was trying to be non-committal in any way. Any question that would have required an answer that was either yes or no was kind of ignored, and he started talking about how this government wants to create jobs for people and how it's concerned about employment and whatever. And the one thing it reminded me of, I don't know if either of you are familiar with this, is when Jeremy Paxman once absolutely skewered Michael Howard. He was the Home Secretary at the time, and this was when the BBC still did really hard-hitting interviews, and apparently there had been some kind of prison-related scandal, and Michael Howard eventually had got his own way by threatening to sack the head who was in charge of, the person who was either in charge of a prison or in charge of prisons per se. And Michael Howard was trying every Weasley trick in the book to kind of get around this subject. And eventually Paxman found the formula which which could not be avoided anymore. It was either yes or no. And it was, did you threaten to sack him? And this is a yes or no question. It's a yes or no answer you have to provide to something like this. And Howard would always start his answer with, well, you see, this can be seen in many ways. And he would basically kind of interrupt him and say, look, I'm sorry to interrupt, but did you or did you not threaten to sack him?
I remember.
In the end, he's said to have asked him the same question 15 times live on BBC Two, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
How long ago was this?
This goes back 20 years or so. It was one of the most shattering interviews you've ever seen.
It's truly enjoyable even today. That's one of those.
Yeah, because you were saying like, oh yeah, I remember that, and I'm like, you're younger than me. How do you remember this?
I remember this in terms of I've seen the interview, not in terms of I was.
It really is a very famous interview, and it's how shall we say? It's a testament to what the BBC once was. And in that regard, what we saw with Trudeau as Prime Minister's question time had something about that interview where you could tell the other one was kind of probing for a question which simply couldn't be avoided. You basically had to say yes or no, if you know what I mean. And Trudeau, no matter how precise the question was, would just go off on a completely unrelated tangent.
But this is just politicians through and through. I remember my first ever meeting with, I can't remember, when I was living in Wales when I was a teenager, and at a local thing in Wales, and so I was studying politics at the time, and we were invited along, and there were various councillors there, and someone asked a question on I think it was something to do with road safety. And the committee person, council member, started off by saying that she loved sports, and it just had absolutely nothing to do with anything else that was even being discussed. And I think at that point, I just became jaded with politicians, and it was my very first interaction with one.
Well, I remember Mitt Romney when he was on the campaign, the presidential campaign trail. And somewhere in the Midwest or whatever, grits is a thing. It's a kind of a local kind of soup or something.
They're kind of like potato.
Mitt Romney stood up behind the podium, arrived at the podium, held both thumbs up in the air in his outstretched arms, and went, "I love grits." And the Republicans just cheered frenetically, you know those kind of old shots, those black and white shots of Hitler finishing a part of his speech, and the crowd just bellows. It was kind of one of those moments. You just looked at it and just went, "Did this just happen?"
Strong. I'm just scanning through this Canada thing. So all I can see is Mrs. Wilson-Raybould talking about how she was put under a huge amount of pressure, threatened.
Well, she's a woman, I believe her.
And so on. But also said during her testimony she did not believe any laws were broken.
Have you seen where the money actually went? So apparently a load of it went to Colonel Gaddafi's son.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Well, a lot of it was funding in the 2000s in Libya. So a lot of it at the time would have been going around to Gaddafi.
Because it was £28 million in bribes alleged to have been offered to Libyan officials.
Yeah, it's $40 million. Apparently a load of it, one of the biggest benefactors was Gaddafi's son, and he spent it on yachts.
Oh my god. It's good to know.
You can never have too few yachts.
That's the Gaddafis for you.
How many have you acquired so far?
Well, I'm still trying to trace the yacht of Onassis, and to see whether the crew is still available.
I have literally no idea.
I don't know if you ever heard of the Onassis was the famous Greek ship owner who married Jackie Kennedy, if you know. And he famously had a yacht, and it was kind of, it was quite an impressive thing for its day. I mean, it wasn't comparable in any way to these kind of super yachts of Saudi princes these days, if you know what I mean. But it was a fairly sturdy ship. I mean, it would be ocean going, if you know what I mean. You could go places with this thing. And Onassis, he was a cautious man. So he realized, yes, I'm very wealthy and very rich and one of the super rich of the day, but, your luck can turn. Things can go wrong. Governments can come to arrest you and so on. So what he did is he had, and this is, of course, back then, this is somewhere in the 70s or so, he had $1 million in gold on every continent.
In all 7 continents, which I think in comparable terms to today is the equivalent of having $40 million.
Yeah, I mean, so it's something that it's a sort of a good little hidey hole to kind of fall back on, if you know what I mean. If you're billions with her, and more to the point, the crew of his yacht were an established crew who had worked with each other before. They were a Second World War German submarine crew. And these folks had an arsenal. So effectively, he sort of believed, look, if I'm ever in trouble, all I need to do is get to the nearest harbour. And then my crew can get me out of just about almost anything. So yes, if you're kind of a super rich billionaire,
to Argentina we go.
yes. So if you're a super rich billionaire and you don't have an armed former kind of naval crew that can get you out of trouble, then really you're in, you're in the minor league. You really have to improve your game.
Evidently, I should step up, shouldn't I, Britisher?
Very much so.
I need to get 1 million on every continent.
I mean, so in that regard, when you see some of those super yachts and they've got a kind of helicopter pad at the back, that better be a helicopter pad for a gunship.
Yep. Lord Pterodax chiming in with £5. Thank you very much, saying, I'm crying laughing at the fact that AA has been overtaken on his own channel by Don the Pleb. Yes.
Wait, what's this?
So Don the Pleb put a video up for AA called The Coming California Catastrophe.
Oh, yeah, that was a couple of months
ago.
I saw a tweet.
I sort of in the corner of my eye, I saw a tweet, but I didn't quite catch it all, and it had already gone by, and I couldn't find it again.
And basically, in the last week or two, it's completely blown up, and it's done 120,000 views. So it's just
bloody hell.
4 minutes of Don the Pleb talking, and it's done better than any of AA's recent videos.
120,000 views.
It might be more.
Amazing.
I don't know. Let me have a look.
I have got a video. Well, I've got one video that's done better than that. That's the white culture one.
I have one.
And you pushed that.
That took me over a year to acquire those views, because when it actually first came out, it did about 30,000, and then it stopped moving. So what I did thereafter, because I thought, look, if I get a big video, perhaps that will help my channel. So let's try and force it like a bit of a hothouse flower, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I simply kept it pinned to my Twitter. So, the more noise you make on Twitter, people go and look at your profile. The first thing that comes up is that video.
Yeah.
So like that, I forced it up. But that's what I mean. So Don the Pleb has done in, well, how many days? When did he put this thing up?
Let me see what I got here.
It was
coming. It's 144k now.
So it's already passed me.
And it's already passed, and it was uploaded a month ago. And
in 1 month on AA's channel, Don the Pleb has done what's taken me about 1.5 years.
Oh, don't be so bitter, British.
Well, by this way, my biggest video has done like 7,000, I think. So like Don the Pleb has already taken over me like 20 odd times.
Yeah, this is terrifying, isn't it?
Let me.
I just had a look at.
Well, fine. I think we've just uncovered a conspiracy. John the Pleb is actually related to the CEO of YouTube. I think we all agree.
7.7. That was a video that was done almost a year ago. That's my most popular one. And that's like the second video I've ever done.
Let me see.
I'm surprised it hasn't like translated into like subscribers for him though. Like it was a good video. People should be going and subscribing to him.
Oh, to Don.
Yeah, 2 plebs.
Yeah, I mean they've just hit over 1k, so they're pretty happy.
But was that related to their hitting 1k? I mean, might that have been what actually drove them there? If you know what I mean.
Could have.
So they will have actually got something from it. If you know what I mean.
I can't. Unfortunately, Social Blade doesn't tell us how many views it accumulated suddenly, but literally, it's just this last 2 weeks.
Oh, that's unreal.
Yeah,
it's one of those sort of fabulous moments, isn't it?
And it's just one of those things which has blown up, but it's not even his video.
No.
And at the same time, how good is 2 plebs that they didn't put it on their channel?
Well, that's the same as what is it? Poisoning the Well. Their most successful video was a video they did as a bit of a joke for Logic. And so basically, they've never kind of managed to kind of, catch up with the thing they actually achieved there. And the thing they did was for somebody else's channel.
Yep.
So it's really sort of one of those brutal moments where you sort of think, if only that would have been on their own channel, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who wants to see, because I think they have got it on their channel now. They've got it with a bit of a sort of explanation in advance of it, where they talk about it a bit, and it's kind of a sort of a rap battle between Logic and the Armored Skeptic.
Right.
And the production values of anything Poisoning the Well do are just off the scale. If you watch their stuff, you will understand immediately. And that particular one, that's their all-time classic. So if you go on there and you do a bit of rooting on their channel, you will find a sort of a Logic Armored Skeptic rap battle, and it's something to behold, folks. Seriously.
Maybe Sly Sneak needs to challenge Logic or Armored Skeptic just to be able to build up.
Or he needs to get Poisoning the Well to challenge them for him. Yes.
I'll send him a message on Facebook, and we'll make it happen.
A beautiful piece, in all these rap. In all these rap things, you always get girls and fast cars, don't you? So one of them knew somebody who had some classic sports cars, including, I think, an old Mercedes sports car that's worth about $250,000 or whatever. So, well, they borrowed it. They borrowed it.
They do it in underwear as well, don't they?
Yes, indeed. Yes, they borrowed the car, and I think was it a Corvette? They also borrowed. This was while the other guy was in Las Vegas. And then when they got to the place where they were doing the filming, the guy who was supposed to drive the car alongside them, super slow while they were walking and rapping, he hadn't turned up. So they managed to find a 14-year-old kid to drive the car for them.
On private property, yeah. That was so funny. Dr. Martin Luther Pepe has donated 100 SEK. So thank you for that. And says, how can you ID a Norwegian U-boat? By the oars sticking out of the sides. How do you sink a Danish U-boat? You knock on the hatch. And to preempt Skoen, how do you sink a Swedish ship? You launch it. There you go.
True enough, yes. The Vasa lives on, yes.
Skoen chimes in with 50 DKK, thank you very much, and says, just what I needed while keeping society alive. Are the humans still bothering you? No, we're all reptiles here. That's the plan. You think about something like David Icke coming up with the kind of reptilian kind of conspiracy that we're run by these alien reptilian overlord type things.
Yeah.
And you just wonder where it came from. Like, was he just on DMT one night?
Well, the best one regarding the David Icke stuff and, the reptilian overlords and all that is the best part about it is that people accuse him of that's anti-Semitic. The entire thing about the reptilians, that's just,
Veiled
that's just dog whistling.
Obviously.
You're basically dog whistling to the far right of what you actually mean is the Jews.
Oh,
and you
sure.
just go, seriously? Really?
Are you really going to...
The lizard people? I mean...
Can he not just be insane? Can this not be a thing? And what's worse, it's not even that original if you think about the film They Live.
Yeah.
Right, where the glasses, where you can see that the aliens are actually in control of society. Like, I just think he was smoking something and watching that film and was like, there's something to this. But I can't completely rip it off, so it's got to be lizard people.
But of course, I mean, should it be true, I just wish to point out that I'm very fond of lizards, and I like the lizards very much, and please don't hurt me.
Good.
Good.
Sitsko and saying, don't get me wrong, I consider you all humans except maybe the Britisher. However, electricians are superior. As proof, I give you the fact of all the power you're using right now. Are you trying to say electricians are not people? They're like demigods. I think we've guessed what Sitskoen's profession is.
I think it says a lot about what Scandinavians think of electricity. I would like to point out that Faraday was British.
Yes, and I don't know where we're going from. Faraday was British, but Thank you for that. But Silly Sailor does
I'm sure at least one or two people in the chat will understand what the hell I am talking about. But please do carry on.
People are putting your words in your mouth now, Britisher. So Object of
They're
Hate...
putting my words in my mouth. That's
Obviously.
a tricky thing to do, yes.
Object of Hate is saying, I even have a reptile friend, the Britisher, 2019. I, for one, welcome our reptilian overlords. And Silly Sailor donating
Well, I mean, can they do any worse than Theresa May?
I mean, she's more of a Emperor Palpatine type figure. I really want her to wear a cape or a cloak at some point.
No. I mean, can you imagine the conflict, the inner turmoil you will create in AA if Theresa May starts wearing a cape?
Oh, of course. No.
I mean, either a cape or an Inter Milan T-shirt.
Oh, God. Like, what is it? I wish I understood enough football. I understand it's an insult, but that's about as far as I can...
What's this about Inter Milan?
Basically, AA has homoerotic fantasies about Inter Milan football players.
Central defenders.
He has such weird...
Former central defenders of Inter Milan, yes.
Like, you watch his videos, and they're, like, quite serious on economics, and then the guy's, like, into rap music, WWE, Inter Milan.
Well, I mean, let's hope it was Inter Milan, because if it was AC Milan, then right now he's throwing his shoes at the screen as we speak.
Oh, bless him.
He
is an odd one. I love him, but he is odd.
I really hope he's listening right now. Good luck getting on Unpopular Opinions again, Rose. Just saying. Silly Sailor says, so you're saying the lizard people run YouTube, Britisher?
I wouldn't be surprised. Would anybody else?
Susan doesn't really seem like the lizard type. I mean, they chose the name Susan.
I don't even know what to say to that.
Well, it's kind of a plain, like a normal name.
You would sort of think, think lizardy, think those split tongues, Susan. That makes perfect sense as far as I'm concerned.
Lord Pterodax chiming in with £5 to say, I used to be a reptile by the name of Saurosapien before I became a robot. I think maintaining his YouTube persona online. There you go. The Squire of Kokos, who I've just made a moderator, saying, does this wrench qualify me as an electrician? Yes, anyone who gets given a wrench has ascended to demigod status.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, wrench is not necessarily tools one associates with electricians, but close enough.
More of a plumber, right?
Well, more of... Actually, I don't even... A mechanic. I'm just naming professions now. Sorry, I'm really not... Like, I wouldn't... I'm rubbish with tools of any sort. I can use a screwdriver.
That's a good start. That's a good start.
Yeah, one of the most creative uses of wrenches, of course, was in the film Dodgeball. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. Yes.
And he has like dozens and dozens of wrenches in the bag, doesn't he, as well? Just horrendous. The let me see. Not that much going on in news. Although an aid worker, this is an interesting one. Because, of course, there's a lot of anti-Brexit sentiment around what happens to British nationals who are abroad, who lose their citizenship, especially if they're working in the Middle East. So there's if I share my screen for just a moment.
Wait, hold on a second. If the British nationals working in the Middle East...
Yeah.
How is that affected by Brexit?
Because this British-born aid worker in Syria has lost his citizenship.
How?
Takir Sharif.
But that wouldn't really be Brexit.
Oh, hold on a second. This isn't... No, he says... he's... Oh, wait, no, he's a member of Al-Qaeda.
He claims he's not. He's an aid worker who formed a charity and went across... And then claimed...
He previously carried an AK.
To defend himself.
We took the white helmets. We took the white helmets. Why shouldn't we take the Al-Qaeda aid workers?
Al-Qaeda aid workers. But anyway, so the Home Office has removed his British citizenship, saying it had been secret. It had seen secret intelligence and believed he had links to an Al Qaeda group. He denies the links and calls the decision unfair and, of course, racist. Not misinformation. It's clearly racism. They don't like him because he's brown. It's not because they were either fed false information.
Remind me of the ethnic background of our Home Secretary again.
What, the egg?
Yes,
The egg.
the egg.
It doesn't have a background.
Well, I mean, if you recall, he's called Sajid Javid, and sort of has a certain Pakistani ring to it.
Just a dash.
So this is the racist Home Office, led by a ethnic Pakistani, basically being racist towards people of Middle Eastern descent or even Pakistani descent. This could be.
Or they would just use the term Uncle Tom or an equivalent of it. It's like, you're speaking out against us, so therefore you're a traitor. But I think
so this is kind of internalized racism as opposed to internalized misogyny.
Oh, absolutely. Well, any kind of people who are motivated entirely based on things like race and stuff, they expect every one of their whole group to follow their thoughts, and those who speak out against them are considered traitors, whether it's race, sex, gender, blah blah blah. But I think with these kinds of things, they're going in the wrong angle by trying to make it a race issue. I find it quite concerning that the government is ultimately able to strip people, like, going back to something like Shamima Begum, like, I think that she's an absolute piece of trash, but I do have concerns about the government stripping her of citizenship.
Well, it's a funny one of those funny topics which people never really talked about, but the British government has stripped an awful lot of people of citizenship.
Yes, they have.
In general, over the last 100 years, even.
Yeah.
And they get around a lot of stuff by the process of dual nationality.
Yeah,
You're not allowed to leave someone stateless.
That's true, but I find it with Shamima, like, again, don't want anyone to think that I'm defending her in any way. And a big problem I have with the rhetoric about this is the left is very much batting for Shamima. The fact is, it's effectively dumping our problem on Bangladesh, who really have nothing to do with her. Like, she's never been to Bangladesh, she's never lived there, and then we're just able to be like, you deal with, like, we deal with her because we're completely incapable of dealing with ISIS members here in the UK for some reason.
Well, yes, but Bangladesh being a kind of Deobandi Muslim nut job, that, you know, one could say that she would more than likely fit in there better there than she would here, if you know what I mean.
No, yeah, that's true. But the Bangladeshi government has already said that they want nothing to do with her.
Oh yes, I know, but I mean that this is just basically because they don't want to be seen to be the losers in a game of pass the parcel.
Yeah, true.
Even though, you know, as such, I don't think they would really expect it to cause much trouble with her being there, because I don't think she will. You know, I think a great many people kind of fear that she would come here and then start, you know, either moving in circles in which we wouldn't want her to move, or, you know, bring up her child to just hate us.
And that's a concern that I share.
Whereas, you know, when you then look at if she were to go to Bangladesh, that wouldn't really happen there, would it?
No.
Like, you know, she wouldn't have the enemy to rail against.
That is true. I mean,
true,
I'm not sure
like,
of the religious makeup of Bangladesh. If
the difficulty with Shamima in general is she defected to a terrorist state that we cannot legally recognize as a real thing.
Yeah.
So it's not even that. Like, it's not even a case of, say, take this chap, Mr. Sharif, who may or may not be an aid worker who's had his citizenship stripped. You know, like the things are a bit more clear cut for him. You know, he has to make a case. He's waived his right to anonymity to try and get his citizenship back and stuff like that. And it could well be just a horrible mistake for the poor guy. But at the same time, you've got Shamima, who is quite clearly aligned herself and literally ran away to join ISIS. And you can't leave her stateless. And at the same time, you can't dump your baggage on another nation. But it's just like, who get basically it almost should have been a race between Bangladesh and the UK as to who was gonna ditch her first, because no one wants her now, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
So it's just a really dodgy thing. It's like you can't leave them stateless, even though she's living in an illegitimate state, as they call it. So
yeah, and with this guy, there is an ambiguity because we don't know, and we're probably never going to know what dirt, if any, the government has on him. So without having access to the facts, it's very hard for us to be able to say, yes, he deserves to have his citizenship. No, he doesn't. Shuaima Begum, on the other hand, openly said, "Well, they don't have anything on me except I went and joined ISIS."
yeah, just that.
This is one of my favorite. Like, I think of everything that she said. Like, that's like, because I know she came out and said some really horrible stuff, but that bit always makes me laugh. It's just a whole way that she says it as well. It's like, oh, they don't got nothing on me except I went and joined ISIS, and so like that's not incriminating in itself.
Yeah,
like she's.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you make one little mistake.
Everyone makes mistakes at 15.
I mean, it could be worse.
Some people shoplift a chocolate bar and other people join ISIS.
Well, it could be worse. I mean, she could have put on a MAGA hat and smiled at a Native American. I mean, that's genuinely worth ruining the life.
Hateful.
Well, the amount of people I've seen on my own personal
you to go
Facebook.
completely over the top again and use something which equates with the Holocaust.
Well, the amount of people I saw on my own personal Facebook who were saying, like, the Covington kids, like, they deserve their lives ruined, their families deserve their lives ruined. Shuaima Begum deserves all our sympathy, though. It's like, that's interesting. So you can join a death cult and that's fine, but you wear a MAGA hat and you're kind of banished for life.
Jumping back to this particular case, though. Here's a really interesting, this thing. So, Mr. Sharif, 31, from Walthamstow, had his citizenship removed by Amber Rudd in 2017. As Mr. Sharif is entitled to Pakistani nationality through his father, we are allowed to deprive him of his citizenship as he's not stateless. His wife, however, is British, as are their 5 children, all of whom have been born in Syria. Does that make them British?
Well, it would make that. Well, thing is, if she is British and full British and doesn't have dual nationality with anything, they could technically be classed as like part British. I mean, when you look at, I'm not sure how this works, but I know quite a few people who have been born on like military bases in Germany.
Yeah. You wonder if they speak a word of English, though. That's one funny thing.
Maybe.
Well, I
5
think,
kids in
particularly
Syria.
when it comes to military bases, I think there are sort of exemptions for those kind of things. When it comes to any children that were born to an English woman in Syria, it's once again, I think this kind of the whole thing falls into because it's not a recognized state.
Yeah.
So effectively, you would have to tie the children to something. So therefore, it's most likely going to be the fact that it's the English mother. So it's it's either Syrian nationality, but then it wasn't really under Syrian control at the time, or you'd kind of have to look at it as pretty much being a raft out at sea, if you know what I mean. And I think, yes, you would then have to allocate the children to one of the parents.
And so you could easily just do it to Pakistan as well.
I guess, yes, to a certain extent, one would be able to do that.
I don't know. I mean, it's...
But then again, that then depends on whether Pakistan recognizes them, because it's not, when it comes to Shuaima Begum or Shamima Begum, one knows that there is, strictly speaking, she has a right to claim. When it comes to somebody who's just been born somewhere, it's not to say that necessarily you can assume that a third country will claim them, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I think in something like that, children that are kind of born in a war zone that is under the control of something no one recognizes internationally, except possibly Sudan or something like that.
So were they born in an area which, would say, like, wasn't under Assad's control?
Yeah, I mean, by the sound of it.
So what were they actually doing out there? So he says that he's an aid worker.
Yes.
Yeah, so like, what the hell was he like? He's been out there for, like a long enough
He's
time
been
to have
five
five
kids.
That's a bloody long. Like, you know,
Well, it's a lot
he
of
meant to be
aid.
doing. Yeah, like
He was giving it that aid to her every night.
well, like
but-
that's it. That's.
I mean, I'm inclined by the looks of things, given that he like
there's
openly and
criticism.
actively denies ISIS. He came out there. He keeps talking about how he's constantly under attack by them.
Well, they seem to be saying he is a part of Al Qaeda, not ISIS. And from what I remember, Al Qaeda and ISIS have been fighting each other.
True enough. Yeah.
So so maybe they're coming at it from that angle. But
well, there may in fact be a kind of strange amount of hypocrisy going on here, because of course,
right.
Al Qaeda were to a certain extent supported by the West, which would include us.
To a certain extent, they were.
Yeah,
They were. We bankrolled them.
Yeah, and then they turned against us.
Yes. So this may be someone who was on the side that we actually backed, and now that basically that is all basically coming to an end, we may well be looking at it. Oh well, yeah, we backed you, but frankly, we don't want you.
We effectively put you in this situation. Now stick with it.
Can you just go and be extreme somewhere else now, please?
Object of Hate says maybe he had 4 wives, and that's how he got out 5 kids so quickly. And Harry Channel says they didn't have a TV license, so they had to do something during their downtime. And just to run through the super chats, Harry Channel says for $5, thank you very much. Isn't losing your citizenship preferable to being tried for treason?
I would rather someone be tried for treason.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think maybe if I was in, say, their situation, like I could either live free in different other countries or be jailed in the UK, it probably would choose freedom.
I mean, treason would be death, so.
Well, in the UK?
Yeah. It's the only crime
sure.
which...
No, I'm not sure, actually.
No, I'm sure that the death penalty was got rid of for all crimes. It's just that treason hasn't been tried since 1948.
Types of treason. Certain types of treason, I think there are still the death penalty, but I think...
But what do we have to carry it out with? Do we have
firing squad?
AA. Death by AA.
Death by one man and a cake.
We just basically put the to be deceased in the same room as AA, who is armed with an ice pick at the time, and then we whisper into AA's ear that this is a leftist. Then we turn off the light and just wait for the sounds to stop.
I was thinking he would do it more by death by chopper.
Someone put in the chat, we work in the dark to serve the light. We are electricians.
What is this whole thing with electricians?
This is a new meme that is coming up. I demand memes. Dominic saying that treason got repealed by New Labour as well.
We should have some sort of treason law, and that should be applied to people who...
It was a kind of precautionary act, is that what you're saying?
Clearly. If only we had known. So Scowen jumping in on the Swedes versus Danes Scandi War stuff, saying, how to insult Swedes? Call them Swedish. There you go. Scandi War started. Back to making money and sticking my hands into death. So there you go.
Oh, a Swede is a kind of root vegetable, isn't he?
And Dr. Martin Luther Pepe retorts back, fricadella are just lesser Swedish meatballs. So thank you for always bringing the relevant conversation to the super chat scene. But there you go. Thank you very much. Salad Fork donating $2 Canadian saying +1 for firing squad, no mercy for jihadis. So there you go. That's one of those super chats that's going straight to a charity of YouTube's choice. Probably one of our good friends in Hamas or something like that, or Hezbollah.
The Labour Party.
Via Comic Relief or something like that.
Comic Relief is a bit too problematic now.
Oh,
I'm waiting for David Lammy to come up with his own, like Lammy Relief.
Lammy Relief.
Hosted by Lammy Henry.
Anyone in the chat who's at all proficient with the deep lore, please make Lammy relief happen. Lord Pterodax with £2 saying, "AA armed with an ice pick and a rusty spoon shall be our executioner."
Lammy relief. I can just see Lammy relief right now. Lammy standing there with a with a
On an
newborn
entirely
lamb.
black, yeah,
with a newborn lamb held aloft in his right hand.
on an entirely
and a gun
black
to its
stage.
head, and a gun to its head, which he holds in his right hand. And he's looking straight at the camera and saying, "Money now, or the lamb gets it."
Relieve the lamb, or I shall relieve it of its life. And then Lammy relief. All funds to go towards Lammy fun. I don't know. Silence of the Lammy. Let me see. Wasn't Swede a gay boy band in the 90s? Suede, I think. New Labour also instructed MI5 to dispose of all their documentation on British Trotsky and commies in the 60s and 70s. Interesting. It doesn't surprise me either.
Well, no, definitely not back then.
Oh dear. The most dominant and oppressed are Peruvian electricians. If anyone doesn't know, the academic agent had an economic blood sports with Liz, which he lost quite considerably just by his inferior debating skills. And Liz was very concerned about Peruvians, so that's where that one comes from.
Yeah, I saw a picture in the deep lore of like Paddington Bear and stuff, and I kind of got a little bit confused.
So I've seen this like on the side, so I haven't prepared this one at all, which says, "Do digital echo chambers exist?"
Yes.
And I'm just like,
no. Oh.
Well done, British. Just should I just end the stream now? I mean, the greatest, the magnum opus of the Britisher has just been achieved. It's just the British creating his own echo chamber. Oh, strong effort.
Oh, sorry.
Oh dear. So, a common and ostensibly common sense assumption about the era we're living in is that social media is a primary cause of polarization. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it like we're any more polarized. I just think that we can now gather in the online space.
So what they're saying is, were it not for the internet, we wouldn't have Jeremy Corbyn.
And we wouldn't have Trump.
Right, everyone, turn off your computers now.
No, don't leave the stream. I need you. I mean, whatever. Here's an interesting.
Can please someone just make sure that they get a clipping of Not So Obvious shouting, "I need you"? I'm sure we can use this for ulterior purposes.
No, we're only allowed to clip you on this stream, Richard. I'll have you know. So I've often endorsed this idea, whether explicitly or implicitly, during my time at the BBC. Twitter has generally struck me as the industrialization of confirmation bias. Facebook, a softer version of the same. And other platforms such as Instagram, similar. Yes, there's all those echo chambers on Instagram, isn't there?
Yeah.
All those people striving for peak wokeness or peak alt-rightery on Instagram, that well-known hub of social discourse and discord. But this claim that our digital media habits are an exercise in the lazy endorsement of our prejudice is itself a lazy assumption and full of prejudice. If you can't find anything to critique, guys, just critique yourself, but in such a way that it seems like you're on the side of people who are not prejudiced. So it's like everyone except me is making this lazy assumption about prejudice. So let me just present.
Well, I mean, put it like this: that the echo chamber thing is true. You know, we have echo chambers. I think, you know, to deny that is to deny the obvious. But whether it actually is responsible for destroying the discourse, that's where that's what I don't believe. I believe that yes, people are sort of tending towards people who tell them what they want to hear. But I don't think it's this claim that it's making everything more aggressive. That's what I don't believe. I think the aggression is coming from something else. I think the aggression is kind of being created by a polarization of politics, and that is showing itself then in the discourse, if you know what I mean.
But is that not coming from the echo chambers themselves?
No, I really don't see that happening.
Well, I agree with you, Britisher, of course, and so does Rose.
It's one of those things again where you've got it's in a way that sort of the old quandary of does movie violence reflect what's going on out there, or is it the cause of it? And I don't for one moment believe that movie violence creates real violence.
No, and there's studies kind of showing that. It's a similar thing with violent video games. So what would you say is like causing, the real polarization?
I think it's just basically the world we live in, the kind of the political cycle in which we find ourselves at the moment. I mean, if you look back, we have had times of very deep polarization politically.
Yeah.
And I think we are going through such a phase again.
I suppose
I don't think it's basically being caused by communication technology.
Yeah, I mean, when you put it like that, especially for like the 90s and most of the 2000s as well, everything was quite centrist. I mean, you had, regardless of what side on the political spectrum, they were both saying the same. The major parties were both saying the same things. But now you have the left moving more towards socialism, and I can't say that the right is moving.
The way I would tend to look at it is that you get a period of kind of crisis and conflict, and then you get a settlement, and that settlement basically tries to sort out the various issues, and like that the world carries on nicely and calmly and quietly, and then slowly the settlement that was reached, say 25, 30 years ago, slowly begins to conflict with the world as it has become now. It's the world has changed, and the settlement we had way back in the 80s really no longer really applies to our world and our problems today. And then society begins to look for another solution again. And in that solution, of course, you then get different, in that search for a solution, you get different solutions proposed. And then people start fighting over which is the correct solution. And this is in a way what we find ourselves in.
Evening all.
Oh, hello, Ruben.
I'm just playing catch up because I've just got back, actually, funny enough, from Internet Safety Symposium. Which is where I was this evening.
Right. Do tell. Anything interesting?
Well, it was basically how to keep your children safe online, but it was, learning about things, about how
sort of hard hat, high vis vest, that sort of thing.
Actually, no, it was pretty liberal in the fact that the person who's a member of the constabulary, or I should qualify the down south constabulary, where it's a little bit more saner, was saying actually quite a liberal message, is that you can't stop children and young people engaging with the internet. You just have to be aware of what they're doing, and there's a few handy little off buttons. And
how many porn sites did they take you through in the aid of research during this symposium?
I don't know, but I'm quite excited. I mean, porn was mentioned first off, but not in the. It wasn't a kind of torch-wielding mob. That was what was nice about this evening. It was about being aware rather than trying to do a Mrs. Whitehouse and batten down all the hatches and take all the sharp, nasty things away. And so it was just about how to use the off switches, really, and what settings you can use on your computers.
Very so good. Do you think that you're going to be safer on the internet now? That's the important thing.
Well, I watch my sons like a hawk when they're on, so I know all the stuff.
Can you? I'm just when you say like a hawk, I can imagine you perched on the edge of the desk, like in a
you're sitting there with your notepad, taking notes of the best links they found.
Well, yeah. I mean,
So you're telling me there's gore on the internet? There's a few people coming on here saying it's the biscuit peddler.
it's a biscuit peddler. Look, I only ever use it for recreational use, you know, man.
Or if you ended up here, the symposium has failed you.
No, I've been called worse this week. The Discord and my email inbox has been inundated with, "Hey, you, Gove lover, what do you say about what?" And I go, "What? I've met him twice."
You're actually down to tea at his place at the weekend.
I'm just trying to get over the title of biscuit peddler.
Kids say no.
They come to you for their digestives, but then you try and put them onto ginger nuts. The really hard stuff.
We got
Wagon
stuff
wheels
like,
this week.
yeah, kids say no to strangers bearing biscuits, and blessed be the biscuit peddler, as would say Brother Jared. The Grand Duke of Middlesex has donated £5 to introduce themselves in a very grandiose manner. So thank you for that. And says, "I am the Grand Duke of Middlesex, 3rd Baron of the Middle Ground and Lord of Fence Sitting. I agree with Crichton in a pith. Huzzah!" Digestive sounds disgusting. Yeah, I've always been confused by maybe we should have a biscuit stream just to irritate AA, like where we go through the many great varieties of biscuits.
But
But
we tried them all in one session.
we're not going to eat them. Obviously, we're not degenerate. But the yeah, but
Hang on, what if it's like a wine tasting though, and we just have one?
Hang on,
just-
not
Yeah, you just
degenerate.
break off
Just a second. Not degenerate. Not so obvious. What exactly are you saying about Mr. Hitchens?
he can do whatever he wants. But the are just digestive sounds disgusting, which they do. In terms of why you would ever call something a digestive and why that name ever took off, just amuses me.
That it's something Edwardian. That it was marketed as a health tonic.
If we're going to do a biscuits stream with like a wine tasting, we all need to have a rather large metal pot to spit the biscuits into.
What we need to do is we need to get AA to use the YouTube space.
Oh, so we can do it there
and
live.
then we can actually do live biscuits connoisseuring and
biscuit connoisseur stream, and it's going to come on my channel. Just so that I can, because that's clearly going to go viral for millions of views. And the
I dare the authorities to demonetize that.
Dr. Martin Luther Pepe has a question for you,
I think
Rubber.
if you really want to make sure that it goes viral, you need to make sure that Don the Pleb moderates.
Yeah, he has to be the moderator on it. We'll fly him over. Dr. Martin Luther Pepe says, "Rubber, will you take the 3rd biscuit?"
I did for science, and look where it got me.
Took the 5th. Look what he's like now. Jury rigging saying the biscuit peddler has been hobnobbing with the wrong sort. That's double.
Yeah, I'll give him that one. I'll give them that one. Yes.
Or perhaps one can borrow the royal biscuit spittoon. Strong.
Yes, with the Trotsky assortment. Yes, that I've been associated with.
Of course. Thanks for that. I'm going to end us on a positive story, which is just something really just interesting and funny.
More positive than biscuits?
More positive than biscuits. And if I don't get... It's a shame Sarah isn't here, really, because the awing and the squeaking would be happening right now. So, Rose, you know what your job is right now. Sorry, and Rubber. We know you're good with a squeak.
Right.
So, here we go. Animals soothed after world. In fact, Britisher, if you'd like to.
Oh my god!
If you'd like to read this title for me, Britisher.
Animals sued after worldwide mascara brush appeal success.
Look at him.
Oh,
Was that the tone you were looking for?
This is not the tone I was looking for, Britisher, and you
you have a
ruined
kind
it.
of Michael Burke, and finally, animals soothed after mascara experiment.
Yes, I was toying with the idea of whether I should read mascara as massacre, but I decided to go
Animal sued after worldwide massacre.
That's how it sounded like. But so, like, what is this? So they got mascara brushes, and it's just so they can brush the bunnies.
So an Aberdeenshire charity appealed for mascara brushes to groom and comfort young and injured animals, has received hundreds of donations from all over the world.
Aww.
Baby rabbits and pigeons, because pigeons are apparently deserving of love too, even though they're rats with wings, have been among the first to benefit from the scheme at the new Ark Animal Rescue Centre near Ellen, an animal centre dedicated to grooming animals with mascara brushes.
Like, I think it's great that they started off with the bunnies, but then the pigeons. Like, I just find birds evil in general. Like,
I don't know. Like, it depends on the bird.
But birds are jerks.
Well,
like,
aren't they supposed to be miniature dinosaurs with wings?
Pretty much. Like, I can't think of many birds that are nice, like geese.
Robin?
Geese are horrible.
Geese are lethal. They hiss.
Geese, swans. Actually, no, ducks.
I just like the idea of all of these animals.
Oh, okay, that pigeon's quite cute.
I like the idea of all these animals having perfectly groomed lashes after this.
I know. You can elongate the look of the eye. You know, sort of. But what would they have? Would they have different ones? Brown for day wear and black for evening.
Just gonna green if they're feeling extra flashy. JS donated £2 and says, "I had 2 Cornish pasties today. Was the second one immoral?"
No, the pasties are a whole different ballgame.
Pasties are not immoral. There you go. So says the biscuit peddler. And I'm loving all the rabbit comments. Like, Grand Duke of Middlesex, rabbit grooming gangs confirmed.
Perfection.
You internet.
That's the comment of the day.
Yes,
In fact,
I think we can say that one wins the internet today. Yes.
Grand Duke of Middlesex is now a moderator for your channel. There we go. Rabbits are food. I had rabbit for dinner the other day. Game pie, anyone?
I've only ever had rabbit once, and I wasn't impressed.
No, it's not that nice.
No, it really isn't. And like, it's fiddly, and I would rather just eat a goose, to be honest.
Thank you for your insight, Rose. I appreciate it.
Hissing, pecking bastards.
Kevin,
the advice there was kill geese instead. Yes.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Kevin Newell, who helps care for the animals at the rescue centre, it's his job to groom bunnies with mascara brushes.
How did he work this one out?
Told BBC Scotland that we've been inundated and we've got more wands here than in Hogwarts. I don't know whether anyone should break it to him that Harry Potter isn't real. I just feel this would be an important piece of information.
Then again, I think one of the questions we need to ask ourselves right now, given that we are showing this article, is do we really want to give BBC Scotland, of all places, any more exposure?
No, not anymore. No. That's a shame. I'm sorry, pigeons and rabbits. You've got to go without mascara now. They're all going to be recycled as well, apparently, when they're done, because
the pigeons and the rabbit, that is, not the mascara.
Yeah. We've given these brushes a second life, and we will get them recycled and made into another profit. Next up, what was the name of the place where he's there? Ellen Game Pies, coming out of the new Ark Animal Reproduction Centre, or Repatriation Centre? What's the word? Recycling Centre. Why not? Clearly, my wording is not there this evening. I apologise. Salad Fork says...
Thank God, his tailed feature just joined in at the end.
Scotland's being mentioned, so I just joined.
Salad Fork donates $2 Canadian and says plus...
apparently you're all rabbit groomers.
Yeah, rabbit grooming gang. Well, explain in a second. Salad Fork has donated $2 Canadian and says +1 for firing squad, no mercy for rabbits.
Spoken like an Australian.
Yes, and now people telling me off in chat because rabbits are much closer in their genus to rats than pigeons are.
Well, rats are cute as well.
If you say so, they
rats
can be.
Rats are really cute. They have faces.
The idea is that
rabbits don't.
The idea is, Tailed, that animals have been benefiting from mascara privilege, and BBC Scotland has exposed this to the world.
Yeah, it sounds like the kind of class of reporting that we're dealing with up here. Yep.
in that general sense.
Yeah, I just wonder, I mean, in Scotland, obviously, one can get away with stroking or in grooming, as they refer to it, a rabbit with a mascara brush. I wonder what happens if you do it with a pug on camera.
Just,
That's a hate crime, clearly.
So we're just going to send bank
Particularly if
just-
somebody were
as
to
you-
take a still photograph of that very same pug at the time when you would have the mascara brush somewhere central just under its nose.
or you do something. You do something like you take the photos. You go. I'm just going to lift his paw to stroke underneath, and it's just in the wrong position. Oh dear. Have you seen anything interesting in the news this week, Tailed?
Nothing particular I can think of. I'm just literally in the door from work, so my brain isn't exactly functioning properly.
Been
as usual.
fried. We've had the transgender athlete stuff as well. Have people seen this?
What was that in the Olympics?
yeah.
Well, Sharon Davis
Well,
spoke
there was,
out again, didn't she?
well, Martina Navratilova came out the other week saying that she thought that like a trans woman entering like a sport and competing against normal women would be cheating. But she's now said that she's sorry for using the word cheating, which is like you really shouldn't have done that because you started to bend the knee. They're gonna come for your throat, like they are. But already you've got more athletes that are actually kind of coming up as well and saying like actually she has a point. So she's chosen the worst possible time to bend the knee because like as soon as people start rallying around her, she's already cut out to what the activists want to say.
Yeah.
Like I think it's absolutely ridiculous that like trans women are trying to push to be in these kinds of sports. Like I get the whole argument. It's like your body does change when you're taking different kinds of hormones, but I don't think it changes enough to still not give you some sort of advantage. Like personally, if I was to be playing tennis, I would probably lose regardless of who I'm playing because I'm shit at tennis. But
before we jump in any further, Froggy
Sorry.
has donated £2 for a very important message saying rabbits are just rats with long ears. Shut up, Mark. So thanks, Froggy.
Shut up.
I appreciate the £1.30 I'm going to get from that. Telling me to shut up. Look who's the winner here. Thanks.
He's after your job.
So the idea, footballer Blair Hamilton has said that the barriers are coming down to transgender athletes competing in sport after recent criticism from Martina Navratilova and Sharon Davis. On Saturday, former British swimmer Sharon Davis told BBC Sport that many current athletes feel the same way as Navratilova, and that
Rubber, don't you always think it was a shame that Martina Navratilova never got to play mixed doubles with Goran Ivanisevic?
You're arcing back into my late teenage years there.
Oh no, you've set him off on another anecdote.
And I remember well the 1989 Wimbledon. No, I was I was always a Chris Evert fan. There you go. And the British has floored me.
Are we
I
going
think-
There you go.
No,
I just thought it would have just been wonderful to have not so obvious stumble over the name Goran Ivanisevic as much as he does over the name Martina Navratilova.
So
It sounds like you're just showing off the way you're pronouncing.
Well, there is that.
What you don't realize is that his way of saying Navratilova, right, is the same way he says every single foreign accent, and he's really incapable of doing any other foreign accent apart from mildly French and slightly
I
Russian.
will be back. Yes.
There you go.
I reckon the Britisher has the BBC pronunciation guide right next to him every time he does a stream. And
Well, I believe the BBC once had a pronunciation guide. I don't think they have it anymore because some of the stuff they come up with these days.
People saying at least it's not a tangent into Roman culture this time, by the way.
Desperately looking for a tangent into Roman culture.
No, definitely, I'm sure you are. Blair Hamilton, who plays for Stonehaven Ladies FC, she's the trans athlete, says she has known she was transgender since she was 4 years old, and has had hormone therapy for 3 years. And she says they need to look at the science of what it actually does to your body. She told BBC Scotland, it does take away your muscle mass, your explosiveness, your ratios from type 1 to type 2 twitch fast fibers changes. Your body completely changes. I don't think they realize how much of a change, I think there's a theme here, hormone therapy makes. There is absolutely no advantage on the pitch.
This is all complete nonsense, because I remember distinctly seeing Keira Knightley fence and punch people out in Pirates of the Caribbean who were 3 times her size.
Yes, clearly.
Like, I mean, it definitely does changes. Like, you notice things like your skin changes and, like, you know, like there's loads of changes through it because you effectively go through a second puberty. But I just think I genuinely don't know whether the changes are enough to mean that it should be okay. But I don't think it's a particularly important thing anyway. It's like if the big oppression is that you can't enter the Olympics, like I think you've got it pretty good. Like most people aren't going to get into the Olympics, and you know it would just be abused if like they opened it up to be like, oh, you just need to self ID and that's it. Because like the Russians and the Chinese are just going to load it up with men. And then they'll be like, yeah, they're all self-identifying as women just for the duration of this.
Well, that was the accusations levelled at them in the 1970s.
That's just because their women look like men, though.
I think that was a joke, Mark, yeah.
Thanks, Dale.
I don't think it was a joke. I think there was an East German hockey team that failed en masse. A so-called ladies team. I think it was at 76. Oh, here I go again. Another anecdote. Yes, 1976, Montreal.
That's perfectly all right. Dr. Martin Luther Pepe is going to kick things off by saying the Romans British.
God.
Well, I mean, there was just recently a wonderful fresco found, I believe either in Herculaneum or Pompeii, which they unearthed, and they found a new Roman fresco on a wall, which, it was just worth mentioning. But by all means, carry on with this boring contemporary stuff. Yes.
Did this fresco denote, transgender Olympians and sports people?
Oh, very much so. Yes,
I'm sure it did.
I thought that was more a Greek thing.
Yeah, well, whatever their equivalent was.
Okay.
Tanks, rubber. Just bring about tanks.
JS, to move the conversation on, says, bet they play Firestarter at Keith Flint's cremation.
Oh.
Yeah,
man.
F for Flint.
Yeah.
Sadly,
it would be somewhat ironic if at that cremation they can't get the fire going.
Yes, it's because they used a twisted Firestarter.
I'm a Firestarter, twisted Firestarter.
Well done.
Wait, no,
well done.
And there we go.
You can't breathe the pressure anymore.
Oh dear. Well, on that rather cringe note and sad times, I think it's time to end. So thank you very much to all my guests, short time and long time, for coming on. So thank you for being here, Rubber and Tailed Feature, towards the end.
Oh, not a problem.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to Rose of Dawn for coming along.
No problem.
Thank you to you, Britisher, for standing my company for yet another week.
And thank you also for Mr. Andrew Preview, who couldn't be here today.
Privet.
What?
Wait, who's this?
Oh, the kids these days.
With that, good night, everybody. Take care. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.